Check, check, 1, 2. There's breaking news in the world of technology that you probably feel that you've seen before.
And action.
A supply chain breaks, and everything downstream feels it. But what just happened is different. Because the high-tech supply chain just took another hit that almost nobody saw coming. Helium. No helium means no chip manufacturing. And we didn't run out. We lost capacity, right as demand is the highest that it's ever been, and as the entire global economy is betting on more compute. The helium disruption is big. So let's walk through what just happened, why helium is the latest choke point, and why this keeps happening, as well as what happens next. Now, you might be thinking, helium? The party balloon gas? I know it might seem trivial, but helium quietly touches some of the most advanced manufacturing processes on the planet, including CPUs, GPUs, memory. The truth is, helium plays a small role in all of it. Small, but vital. We cannot make these components without it. And there's no real substitute. There's no alternative. And here's why. When you're manufacturing a chip, there is a silicon wafer that's getting etched, and that wafer sits on a surface called a chuck. Now, between the wafer and that surface is a gap so thin that almost nothing can flow through it, except helium. Because helium atoms are among the smallest things that exist. They slip through that gap, and more importantly, they carry heat away from the wafer. Helium has unparalleled cooling abilities. And that matters because at nanometer scale, heat is the enemy. Think about it this way. 1 nanometer of silicon is about 2 or 3 atoms wide. As we know, heat causes expansion. And even a few atoms worth of drift in the wrong direction ruins the layer. And when you're stacking dozens of patterned layers, each one aligned within a few nanometers of the last, there is no margin. You either hold the line or you don't. The entire industry is a complex system. And in any complex system, there are always components that carry very little weight, but still hold everything together. And helium is one of those components, not because we're running out of it, but because of how it moves, or right now, because of how it stopped. So the supply of helium isn't really about how much exists on the planet. It's about how much we can reliably deliver. Not long ago, missiles struck Ras Laffan in Qatar, the single largest helium production facility on the planet. It's now shut down indefinitely, and that takes roughly a third of the global production capacity of helium with it. Now, helium spot prices have already doubled, but this isn't about price. Helium is less than 1% of the cost of a chip. The problem isn't that it's getting more expensive. The problem is that it might become unavailable. And here's where it gets strange. Helium has a shelf life. Well, if you've ever had a party balloon for more than a day or so, you've seen it. It leaks, it escapes, it disappears. And this is because the atoms are so small that they can slip through most materials, which means that any process that depends on helium ultimately relies on flow. Continuous, precise, uninterrupted flow. You can't just pause a fab. You either run the fab or you don't. Now, to understand the scale of what just happened, Ras Laffan isn't just a facility. It's the size of a small city. Now, it processes natural gas, but it captures the helium that comes with it. Helium that, until recently, was flowing to fabs on the other side of the world. That flow just stopped. Now, right now, attention is shifting to South Korea, who produces most of the world's memory. And they source 2/3 of their helium from Qatar. Their next shipment might still be in transit, but the ones that they're expecting, the ones that they're depending on after that, may never arrive. Now, in theory, they can source the helium from somewhere else, but the system isn't built for that. Helium doesn't move like oil. At the moment, it's easier to move a barrel of oil across the world than it is to move helium. And this is where it gets dangerous, because semiconductor manufacturing doesn't degrade gracefully. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't adapt. It runs until it can't. And when that happens, it's not one company that feels it. It propagates through the entire system, and that's the real problem. Not that we're running out of helium, but that one of the invisible pieces holding everything together just got a lot harder to move. And if this feels familiar, it should. The truth is, the handful of facilities that make semiconductors will probably manage to secure new helium sources. They have to, because there are only a handful of them, and they are some of the most important load-bearing parts of modern civilization. Helium isn't the real story here. It's just the latest reminder, because what we're really looking at is something much bigger. We tend to think about chips and other semiconductors like products. They're not. They are one of the most insanely difficult engineering and manufacturing problems that humanity has ever solved. Well, if we go back to the 1960s, Intel's co-founder, Gordon Moore, observed that the density of microchips, in other words, how many components we can pack onto a single chip, was doubling about every year or so. Now, he expected that that trend would continue for the next decade, but it kept going. Today, we call this Moore's Law, and we've been forcing it to continue for over 60 years by sheer will. Today's most advanced chips are built at a scale where individual features are measured in nanometers. And at that scale, we're not just doing engineering anymore. We're approaching the limits of physics. Quantum effects start to matter. And to make every new generation of chips, you don't just refine the process, you reinvent it from the ground up. New materials, new techniques, new physics, new machines, entirely new ways of thinking. And the cost? Hundreds of billions of dollars. Now, at one point, there were dozens of companies that could build the machinery and produce the chips. But one by one, over the years, they've just given up. It's too hard. It's too expensive. Just the machines that etch the silicon, today, there is only one company in the world that can make them. ASML in the Netherlands. Their most advanced machines are so complex, it takes 4 747 jumbo jets just to move the parts. And it takes a highly advanced facility to run them, and an extremely rare skill set to operate them. But here's what the machine actually does. And when I learned this, it kind of blew my mind. It starts with a laser, and it bounces the laser light off a droplet of molten tin, the size of a human cell. And that molten tin is moving at 70 meters per second. The precision is so tight that it's like shooting an arrow off of the surface of the planet and hitting an apple on the moon. And then it repeats that process around 50,000 times a second. Now, those collisions create a plasma that emits extreme ultraviolet light, EUV. This is light that's so energetic, it is absorbed by almost everything, including air. So the entire optical path has to be a vacuum. And then the mirrors have to focus it and aim it. And these mirrors are the flattest objects ever made by human hands. If you scaled one of these mirrors up to the size of Germany, the tallest bump on that surface would be less than a millimeter. And there's only a handful of people on Earth who know how to align them. And you need helium to cool the wafers, to purge the chamber, because even a single oxygen molecule in the wrong place absorbs that light. This is what we're talking about when we say there's no substitute. It's not one thing, it's the whole system. And the whole system requires helium to flow. Now, at this point, there are only a couple of organizations on Earth capable of doing it all. One company in Taiwan manufacturing the most advanced logic chips for companies like NVIDIA and Apple. A few companies in South Korea producing the majority of computer memory and other useful and necessary chips. So this isn't about Qatar or the Strait of Hormuz being the choke point. The real story is the entire industry is the choke point. The past several years have repeatedly demonstrated just how fragile this system is. The entire world rests on this infrastructure, and the foundation is not as strong as we would hope. Helium is just one of 14 crucial resources that are in constant danger of being disrupted at any time. And then there's Taiwan and China. The geopolitical tensions have been building for years. And the reason Taiwan matters so much is because if Taiwan falls, TSMC goes with it. And if that supply line breaks, there's no backup. We don't have another TSMC, and we couldn't build one in time. It took Taiwan 40 years and the concentrated talent of an entire generation to get there. Nations are waking up to the fact that their economies, their infrastructure, even their defense systems are impossibly balanced on the same fragile supply chain. And with rising geopolitical tensions, it doesn't take much for the whole thing to come down. And this is the part that's starting to change because people are beginning to realize we can't depend on a system like this anymore. Not for something that's this important. The helium issue is new, but the response has long been underway. Countries are investing hundreds of billions of dollars to bring semiconductor manufacturing back within their borders. New fabs are being built, supply chains are being restructured, dependencies are being reduced. And beyond production, countries also see the risk of relying on individual actors, companies like Intel or AMD or Apple, to design the next chips. They're beginning to design their own. But here's the catch. You don't get resilience for free. The system that we built over the last 60 years was optimized for efficiency, lower cost, faster production, global specialization. And it worked as long as everything flowed. But resilience requires something very different. Redundancy, duplication, local capacity, which means, among other things, higher costs, slower progress, and a much more complicated world. We didn't build a fragile system by accident. We built it for a world that doesn't exist anymore. But here's the interesting part. While the physical world just gets more fragile, the logical world is getting more flexible. Now, one of the interesting developments is an open processor architecture called RISC-V. This is a foundational ISA that other countries and other organizations can build on top of, that we can start with the state of the art and go from there rather than reinvent everything that has forever been proprietary. So RISC-V allows new hardware to emerge without a single player like Intel or Apple or AMD. And then there are technologies like LLVM and WebAssembly that don't just give us new tools, they give us new layers of abstraction. They allow the software to move more freely, even when the hardware platforms become disjointed and chaotic. It's the promise of write once, run everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I do mean everywhere. We can now do these things without rewriting everything from scratch. So as the physical world becomes more fragmented, the logical world becomes more portable. Now, this doesn't solve the problem. We still need the hardware, we still need the fabs, we still need the supply chains to work. But it changes how we respond. Instead of depending on a single path, we gain the ability to route around failure. The foundation may be fragile, but the structure above it is learning how to move. The story of helium is just now beginning to break. Soon, you're going to be learning more about helium than you ever wanted to know. But here at DevRandom, we like to dig deeper. We like to connect the dots that nobody else is connecting and tell the stories that you can't hear anywhere else. That's why we're giving you the bigger picture that isn't getting covered. If you like that kind of thing, consider giving us a subscribe. If you learned something new today, drop a like, consider adding a comment. It helps YouTube connect our videos to the kind of people like you who appreciate them, and it helps out the channel a ton. Before we close, I have to give a shout out to my friend and colleague, Brian Sledden. To my knowledge, he's the only person out there paying enough attention to connect the dots of AI and LLVM and RISC-V and WebAssembly and a bunch of other emerging technologies, connecting all of these to this notion of silicon sovereignty. Now, a few other people are beginning to notice, but he was the first. He often is. And the thing is, this is how we navigate our uncertain times by getting a broader set of perspectives, by learning new mental models, gaining new cognitive tools, and gaining the kind of knowledge that allows you to move strategically rather than just react. Now, if you'd like to learn from more voices like mine and Brian's, check out today's sponsor, No Fluff Just Stuff. The reason there's no other conference on Earth that provides the kind of depth and breadth as No Fluff Just Stuff is because they don't operate like any other conference. No vendor hall, no sponsored sessions, no sales pitches, just deep dive immersion into the most important ideas, shoulder to shoulder with a passionate community. Now, their flagship event is taking place this year in July in Denver, Colorado. It's called UberConf. I speak at conferences all over the world, and this one stands alone. If you can make it, I'd love to meet you in person. But I'll also be at the roadshow stops all over the country. Now, if you register, use my promo code DEVRANDOM and save hundreds. This also helps keep them supporting the channel so we can keep bringing you insights and perspectives that you can't find anywhere else. Links are in the description. I hope to see you there, and I look forward to meeting you in person. We started today talking about flow, how the whole system depends on things moving continuously, precisely, without interruption. That's true for helium. And honestly, it's true for knowledge too. Keep it flowing. You keep doing your part, and we'll keep doing ours. I'll see you next time. Helium? The party balloon gas?
Oh, it landed in the shot. It lives there. Whatever.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. And cut.
All right.
Thank you.
It's never not funny.